Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. I am going to do a more controversial negative video today and talk about all the books that I really did not like this last year in 2022. So just remember that if this is one of your favorite books, if the ones I talk about are some of your favorite books, it could depend on when I read the book, the mood I was in, um, my personal experience. Everybody, reads books in a different way. So please don't take it too personally. I always feel so bad when I'm saying all these negative things about books, but it should be kind of fun to look back on what just did not work for me this last year. So let's jump into those books. So the first book that I just did not enjoy was Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri. And this just, I have no clue. I don't remember this book very well at all. And I think when I read it, I didn't remember anything by the time I got to the end. I think it's one of those books where just nothing happens. It's more focused on the writing and not on any sort of plot. And I just could not be bothered by it. So, I mean, even looking at the description of the book, I should have known that nothing was going to happen. It says exuberance and dread, attachment and estrangement. In this novel, the author stretches her themes to the limit. The woman at the center wavers between stasis and movement, between the need to belong and the refusal to form lasting ties. Nothing happens in this book. I did not enjoy it at all, just because nothing happened. Now, here is a controversial one because I know this was a lot of people's favorite. I read The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and I thought it was so stupid. It was just, I mean, I enjoy a romance every once in a while, but I just thought it was dumb. I didn't understand why the characters liked each other. I didn't think there was any sort of healthy relationship modeled in this. I couldn't understand what she saw in this guy or what he saw in her. I just didn't get it. It wasn't for me. And I do know I am a little picky about my romance novels. Like, generally, I don't go for romance books, but I thought everybody's saying this is so great, I'm gonna pick it up. I'm sure that it will be cute and sweet or something, and I just wasn't for me. Was not for me. This next book was forgettable enough that I had to go back and watch my review for it to remember what I even thought of it. I read An Emotion of Great Delight, and this book, I think it was mostly just a problem with the characters. I didn't find the main character delightful in any sort of way. And I think that since it was a young adult book, there was a bit of a romance in it, and it just, I wasn't rooting for it at all. So I came away kind of thinking, what was the point? That was a bit of a depressing read for no apparent payoff or reason. Now, I read The Alice Network by Kate Quinn, and this is a historical fiction, and it's talking about a female spy recruited to the Alice Network in France during World War I, and it's following two different women, and it's historical fiction, and I could not put it down. I was on board. I wanted to read the whole thing. I was very excited to read this book. Now, when I got through, I felt a little weird about it. So the reason I didn't enjoy this book, like I didn't like this book, was just something about the way that it used historical events to further the plot felt a little disingenuous. Oh, look, these sensational things that happened. Let's use it for our plot. It made me like avoid historical fiction for a little while just because I felt like it was exploiting historical events for the sake of plot. And so I don't know why I got that feeling from this book. It just, I don't know, it didn't sit right with me, and it made me kind of wary of historical fiction, even though, like, the writing, everything, I couldn't put it down. I wanted to know what happened, got to the end, and then just felt off. So if you have thoughts on historical fiction, like where do you land on that? Did you read this book? How did you feel about it? I don't know. It was a weird one for me. Like, I just had weird thoughts later. I mean, I really think it's important to have books that talk about the role of women during wartime. I think that that's really interesting. I just think maybe the portrayal of like PTSD was a little trite. You know, she's a raving alcoholic because of what she went through, or like, I don't know, it was just didn't feel truthful. Now, I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh, and I just hated this book. I don't get it. I just don't understand what the point is of this book. I thought like the premise seemed kind of interesting. A girl who's going to try to sleep for a year to be like a butterfly in a cocoon and then emerge reborn. I mean, I kind of got that, but it just ended up being a list of just pills she was taking, and I felt like there was no real lesson learned in the end, at least nothing that was meaningful or true. I just was like, why did I bother? Why did I keep going? I just wanted to know what happened in the end. Did she wake up? Instead of maybe actual world problems, it was very much that like privileged, doesn't have any real problems and things always work out well for her, like the protagonist, and it wasn't relatable or even like a very successful commentary on wealth and privilege. Like there was just nothing in this book that worked for me. So I know a lot of people enjoy Ottessa Moshfegh, but this book definitely put me off of her. This one makes me sad because I love the book Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, but I read Piranesi this year and I didn't like that either. Oh, it's just, I found it monotonous and I didn't get it. So the premise says Piranesi's house is no ordinary building. Its rooms are infinite, its corridors endless, the walls are lined with thousands upon thousands of statues, and he's in like this labyrinth and is imprisoned, and he's trying to discover things about it and see why he's there. Like, cool. It sounded like it would be cool, but I didn't find it magical. I found it kind of dull. I feel like where Susanna Clarke was really successful in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell for me was that magical realism where I felt like I could be a magician and I want to be part of this world and there's magic behind every corner. And I didn't find the appeal or the sweeping fantasy of it. Instead, I just found it boring and empty. So I don't know, this just wasn't quite for me, and it is too bad because I do like Susanna Clarke, and this book couldn't quite get into it. Okay, I read The Chosen and the Beautiful by Niveau, and this is basically a retelling of The Great Gatsby from the perspective of Jordan Baker. It includes a lot more diversity in the characters. There are a lot of, for example, the main character is queer, Asian, adopted, and we get a lot more representation of different people. Now, was this good? No, I don't think so. Like, if you really love The Great Gatsby and you want to keep it going and you basically just want to read a fan fiction of The Great Gatsby, then you might love this. But I don't think it brought anything new, or at least nothing new successfully to the table, other than just a retelling of the story and it tried to throw in some interesting elements like, oh, and then there's magic and then there's this, but it never fleshed those out. You know, like, it never actually explained anything. It was like the author just thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool? Oh, wouldn't that be cool? But it never was done right. I didn't think it was well done at all. Another book that I just thought was boring was The Idiot by Elif Bautuman. And I know lots of people loved this book and thought that it was very funny, and I didn't get the humor. I just thought that it was boring and pretentious. So basically, it's just following um, a girl who is in her first year of Harvard, and she is learning how to use email and trying to make friends or whatever, but nothing happens. I don't know. At one point, she ends up going to Hungary, and that's the most plot that happens in this book. I just didn't think that there was anything going on, and I was very, very bored. And lastly, a recent read that was just disappointing was The Liar's Dictionary by Ellie Williams, and I thought that this had its moments of being clever and fun. This is following some misadventures of a young woman who is working at a dictionary, and also an older timeline that is following a man who is working at the same dictionary. And the first part had too much reliance on cutesy word explanations. The middle part got me kind of excited about the plot. I wanted to know what happened, and ultimately I found the ending to be disappointing and made me question why I bothered wasting my time with the book in the first place. And those are the books that I really just didn't like this last year. I always feel bad saying negative things because my least favorite book might be your very favorite book, and it really just depends on the person and the time. But I notice a pattern. If a book doesn't have enough plot, I might just find it boring. Thanks for watching. If you disagree with me, tell me. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me how I was supposed to read the book, because it didn't work for me, but maybe there was a way that it would have worked had I known more. Tell me how to make it better. I would love to hear your opinions on these books, and I will see you all in the next week or so with a normal book wrap up.